It is my great hope that in each of your communities and collectively as a country, a path is found toward truth and reconciliation in both word and deed. De Victoria en Colombie-Britannique et d'Arviat au Nunavut. As I've said before, every time I come to Canada, a little more of Canada seeps into my bloodstream, and from there, straight to my heart.
Imagine getting checkmated on the global stage and not even realizing it. Trump's been pushing Canada around like a bad neighborhood bully, but wait until you hear how a royal twist has flipped the whole script. The King's visit wasn't just a tea party, it was a diplomatic masterstroke that left Trump scrambling to keep his footing. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Trump's America First wasn't just a slogan. It was his entire personality shoved into 2 words. And let's face it, Canada might as well have been his favorite punching bag. Trade wars, angry tweets, threats to tear NAFTA to shreds, it was a mess. But no one expected him to act differently. Pushing people around is kind of his signature move. He's like the kid in dodgeball who throws the ball at your face just for fun. Except this wasn't playground antics, it was international politics. And let's just say, Canada had every reason to be annoyed. So, what did Trump do? Well, for starters, he slapped tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, claiming it was all in the name of national security. You heard that right. Somehow Canada, America's polite neighbor and one of its longest allies, was now being treated like a threat. Then, there were his loud threats to tear apart NAFTA if Canada didn't agree to what he wanted. Who needs diplomacy when you can just strong-arm your neighbor on social media and call it a day? Oh, and let's not forget the tweets. Trump loved to hop on Twitter and take little jabs at Canada's government, whether it was criticizing Prime Minister Trudeau as weak or flat out lying about unfair trade practices.
Economics and climate change. Your communities have the skills and determination to bring a wealth of solutions. This land acknowledgement is a recognition of shared history as a nation, while continuing to deepen my own understanding. It is with a deep sense of pride and pleasure that my wife and I join you here today as we witness Canadians coming together in a renewed sense of national pride, unity, and hope.
As you'd expect, this threw Canadian industries into a whirlwind. Steelmakers were hit hard, scrambling to figure out what these tariffs meant for their exports. Farmers, especially in the dairy industry, were also dragged into the chaos. Trump claimed Canada's dairy policies were killing U.S. farmers. But what he didn't mention was how heavily the U.S. subsidized its own agricultural sector. Experts at the time pointed out that Trump's aggressive tactics didn't necessarily fix trade imbalances, but created more problems for both sides. A study from the Canadian Chamber of Commerce even warned these tariffs could cost over 6,000 Canadian workers their jobs. Not exactly great news when you're caught in the middle of a trade showdown. Here's the thing, though. Trump's economic tactics were about as subtle as a schoolyard bully stealing lunch money. Imagine that kid who walks around the cafeteria, shoving people out of their chairs and pretending it's his table now. That's basically what Trump was doing on the world stage, saying, "We're America, we're the biggest, so we make the rules." But here's where it backfired. Canada didn't just sit there and take it. Sure, for a while, it looked like they were playing defense, especially with all the chaos shaking up key industries. But what came next was straight up genius. Canada didn't stoop to Trump's level. They didn't send angry tweets or start rolling out threats of their own. Instead, they played it cool and calculated. And their next move? Oh, it wasn't just another speech or press statement. It was a strategic power play on the global stage. Enter the king's visit. Think about it. What better way to respond to a bully than by flexing in the most understated, classy way possible? This wasn't just about repairing strained relations with the world or showing Canadians they didn't have to fear Trump's antics. It was about sending a global message that they weren't intimidated. What makes this so clever is how specific the timing was. The king's visit wasn't just a coincidence. It landed right at a time when Trump was trying to dominate the narrative with NAFTA threats and his ridiculous tariffs. And this wasn't just about Canada waving and smiling for diplomatic photo ops. No, this was bigger. It was a moment designed to show strength, unity, and independence, not just to Trump, but to the world. By bringing the king into the mix, Canada flipped the script. Instead of being the kid forced to sit in the corner while Trump threw a tantrum, they became the cool, collected leader who didn't need to stoop to anyone's level. And boy, did it work! Not only did it subtly challenge Trump's narrative of America against the world, but it also strengthened Canada's ties with other nations. By standing tall instead of stooping to Trump's mudslinging, they found a way to come out looking like the grown-up in the room. So, yeah, if Trump thought his tariffs and Twitter wars would bring Canada to its knees,
which is recognized across the world for bravery and sacrifice in defense of national values and for the diversity and kindness of Canadians. While the world faces unprecedented challenges, generating uncertainties across the continents with regards to peace and stability, you have welcomed my family and myself to your traditional lands with great warmth and hospitality, for which I am humbly grateful.
he was sorely mistaken. Because this move wasn't just about survival, it was about making a statement that echoed far beyond Washington. Now, you might be thinking, how does a royal visit tie into all this? Why did it matter so much? Well, this is where things get really interesting. What looked like a friendly ceremonial gesture turned out to be a diplomatic checkmate. And wait until you hear how it all went down. Who knew a king could change the entire vibe of international diplomacy? Yep, this wasn't some chessboard metaphor or a Shakespearean drama. Canada actually pulled out their cool older cousin move in the form of a royal visit, and honestly, it couldn't have been timed better. At first glance, sure, it might have looked like just another ceremonial wave and smile tour, but make no mistake, this was diplomacy wrapped up in royal finesse. To set the stage here, tensions between the US and Canada were running high. Trump was busy peacocking with his America First policies, throwing shade at Canada whenever the mood struck him. Tariffs? Check. NAFTA threats? Double check. Late-night tweet storms about unfair trade? Oh, he was all over it. Every headline seemed to paint Canada as the one ducking for cover while Trump took wild swings. Enter the king, sweeping into Canada like a perfectly timed rebuttal. And trust me, this wasn't just about bonding over tea and crumpets. The timing was razor sharp, almost as if Canada was saying to Trump, "Not everything revolves around you, buddy." Imagine this scenario. You're a kid in school, dealing with someone who likes to push you around at lunch every day. You might not be the loudest voice in the room, but one day, your super cool older cousin swings by, sits with you at the lunch table, and suddenly the bully's strut doesn't seem so intimidating anymore. That's exactly what this visit felt like. The king didn't come to dictate some long political agenda or publicly badmouth the US. That's never the royal style. But just by being there, showing solidarity with Canada, the message was clear. Canada wasn't isolated, and oh boy, did that shift the dynamics. Now, if you're wondering how a royal visit could pack such a punch, let's take a quick look at what history tells us. Royal tours are never just empty gestures. They can elevate a country's international standing in ways that regular diplomatic meetings can't. For example, back in 1939, King George VI and Queen Elizabeth visited Canada right before World War II. That visit wasn't just a charming PR stunt. It was a calculated move to strengthen Canada's loyalty to the UK, while subtly preparing the stage for wartime collaboration. Fast forward to now, and it's like Canada dusted off that old playbook and said, let's roll out the big guns, or rather, the royal ones. Experts often note that royal visits can work small miracles in diplomacy, especially when they're tied to strengthening alliances. Unlike Trump's brashness, which alienated close allies, this visit signaled that Canada still valued collaboration and mutual respect on the global stage. And let's not forget the spectacle. For a leader like Trump, who thrives on being the center of attention, watching Canada bask in the global spotlight during this visit was probably not the most pleasant experience. If the king's presence symbolized a deep, collective respect for Canada, Trump's America looked, well, kinda left out. But this visit wasn't just symbolic. Behind the scenes, it was a masterclass in soft power. Remember, soft power isn't about shouting the loudest. It's about influence, culture, and charm. Canada nailed all three. Whether it was strengthening ties with the Commonwealth or signaling stability to other key players like Europe and Asia, the King's visit widened Canada's diplomatic circle just enough to quietly box Trump out. The message was subtle but unmissable. Canada wasn't about to let Trump's chaos define its global image. Instead, they leaned into their reputation as the steady, cooperative player, and it worked. Even beyond Trump, the King's visit also helped solidify Canada's relationships beyond just trade. It sent a rippling statement that Canada wasn't standing alone, or, let's be honest, sitting at the kids' table while Trump hogged the grown-ups' conversation. With world leaders watching, this visit painted Canada as stronger, more independent, and fully capable of balancing its ties with the US while building bridges elsewhere. What's fascinating is that this wasn't even communicated through direct confrontations or speeches. The King didn't call out Trump specifically, and Canada didn't throw any punches for the cameras. But that's the exact kind of subtle elegance that probably drove Trump nuts. Being outplayed without a single blow landed, that had to sting. It's no wonder Canada came out looking measured and dignified while Trump's America First campaign slowly started to isolate his own country. And just like that, Canada managed to flip the story from one of victimhood to one of resilience. No angry clapbacks, no Twitter wars, just a quiet, calculated approach that made other nations take notice. As the dust settled, Canada stood stronger, with deeper alliances and, crucially, a more favorable position on the world stage. And Trump? Well, he was left watching the lights from the sidelines instead of basking under them. Canada didn't just survive Trump's bullying, it turned his chaos into an opportunity to shine. While he was busy throwing tantrums and stoking trade wars, Canada played the smarter game, quiet, calculated, and classy. The King's visit was the ultimate flex, showing the world that diplomacy isn't about who yells the loudest, but who moves the smartest. It's proof that you don't need bluster to win. You just need strategy. So, the next time someone tries to dominate the global stage with aggression, ask yourself, what if patience and finesse are the real power moves? Let that sit with you.